comes a moment in every believer's life when God calls you to do something that doesn't make sense, something bigger than you, something riskier than you prefer, something that requires you to step out of the comfort of everything familiar. And in that moment, the greatest truth you must face is this: you can't walk on water without leaving the boat. You cannot experience the supernatural while clinging to the safe. You cannot grow in faith while gripping fear. You cannot witness miracles while refusing movement. You cannot step into destiny while staying in comfort. Every water-walking moment begins with the same challenge. Will you stay where you feel safe, or will you step where God is calling? This is not just a story about Peter on the Sea of Galilee. This is the story of every person who has ever been called by God to rise above fear, logic, limitations, and self-protection. Walking on water is impossible until God calls you forward. The boat, a symbol of everything. You trust more than God. The boat represents more than wood and nails. It represents your security, your understanding, your comfort zone, your predictable patterns, your self-made safety, your fear of risk, your need for control. The boat is the place where your faith feels manageable and your fear feels distant. But the boat is also the place where you never grow. The danger of the boat is not that it is unsafe. The danger is that it is too safe. The boat is familiar, but familiarity can be a silent enemy of faith. The boat is comfortable, but comfort can become a cage. The boat gives you the illusion of stability, but illusions cannot sustain destiny. If God allowed you to stay in the boat forever, you would survive, but you would never transform. So in His mercy, He calls you out of what is stable and into what is supernatural. The call always comes in the middle of the storm. God rarely calls people out of the boat on calm waters. He calls them in the wind. He calls them in the waves. He calls them in the chaos. He calls them when stepping out seems the least logical, because faith is not forged in stillness, it is forged in storms. Peter didn't walk on water on a quiet evening. He walked on water when the waves were high. The wind was fierce and the sky was black. Why? Because God does His greatest work when your natural strength collapses. He calls you out when every reason says stay in. He invites you forward when every instinct says hold back. Storms reveal faith you didn't know you had. Storms test trust you never needed before. Storms break the illusion that you can save yourself. The storm is not the obstacle. The storm is the environment where faith becomes undeniable. Fear always speaks first, but God speaks loud. The moment God calls you out of the boat, fear rises like a wave. Fear says, what if you fail? Faith says, what if God carries you? Fear says, you'll sink. Faith says, you'll stand. Fear says, stay here where it's safe. Faith says, go there where God is. The instinct to cling to the boat is deeply human, but the call to step onto the water is deeply divine. If you wait for fear to vanish before you obey, you will never move. Walking on water is not about being fearless. It is about walking in spite of fear. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is the decision that fear does not get the final vote. Obedience is the bridge between the call and the miracle. Peter did not walk on water because he was courageous. He walked because he obeyed. He said one dangerous word, yes. And yes always precedes the impossible. Your miracle is not waiting for more information. Your miracle is waiting for your obedience. Obedience is the door through which God performs the supernatural. Obedience unlocks what fear tries to shut. Obedience is the step between you and breakthrough. The greatest moves of God begin with the smallest acts of obedience. The first step is always the hardest. You can imagine stepping out. You can pray about stepping out. You can journal about stepping out. You can talk to friends about stepping out. You can watch sermons about stepping out. But none of that is stepping out. The moment comes when your foot must actually lift from the wood and land on the waves. The first step is where faith becomes real. The first step is where heaven meets earth. The first step is where miracles begin. Every destiny requires a moment where comfort is traded for calling. You cannot avoid that. Moment 2 can only postpone it. But postponement steals more from you than obedience ever will. Jesus stands in the place you fear most. Jesus didn't call Peter to the shallow end. He didn't call him to the place where Peter felt in control. He didn't call him to the place where Peter could feel the bottom with his toes. He called Peter to the very place Peter feared the most, the deep, unpredictable, uncontrollable waters. And that is where Jesus still stands today. Jesus always stands where fear screams the loudest. He stands in the unknown. He stands in the risk. He stands in the uncertainty. He stands where logic fails. He stands in the one place where you cannot rely on yourself. Because faith is not about your ability to walk, it is about His ability to sustain you. Miracles wait on the other side of risk. Every major breakthrough in your life is tied to a single decision. Will you step out, or will you stay where you are? You cannot pray for miracle-level outcomes while living boat-level obedience. Walking on water requires risk, surrender, trust, movement, vulnerability, courage in motion. Obedience in uncertainty. You cannot remain anchored in safety and expect heaven-sized results. The supernatural requires participation. You will not walk far if you keep watching. The wind. The moment Peter shifted his eyes from Jesus to the waves, he began to sink. Your feet follow your focus. If you watch the risk, you'll drown. If you watch the waves, you'll panic. If you watch the wind, you'll retreat. If you watch your fear, you'll freeze. But if you watch Jesus, your fear will bow, your doubt will loosen, your steps will strengthen. Walking on water is not a step of perfection, it's a step of focus. You don't need more confidence in yourself, you need more concentration on Christ. Even if you sink, you are still safe in His hands. People fear stepping out because they fear failing. But even failure in faith is safer than success in fear. Peter sank, but he sank into the arms of Jesus. The others stayed safe in the boat, but they never touched him the way Peter did. Sinking is not the end of faith. Sinking is part of walking. People who try and fail are closer to Jessuston. People who never move because they fear failure. God can rescue sinking faith. He cannot rescue stagnant faith. He can lift you when you fall. He cannot move you when you refuse to take a step. The boat never moves, but you were not created to stay still. Were made for movement. You were made for calling. You were made for depth. You were made for transformation. You were made for obedience that scares you. You were made to walk where others sink. Staying in the boat might protect your pride, but it will starve your purpose. The boat keeps you alive, but it does not let you truly live. Some people spend their entire lives worshipping a God they never truly follow. They never take the step that leads to the supernatural. Don't waste your life polishing the boat God called you to leave. Water-walkers change the world. Boat sitters, watch them do it. Every story of spiritual transformation in His story belongs to someone who decided that the risk of stepping out was worth more than the comfort of staying in. Abraham left his country. Moses left the palace. David left the field. Esther left her silence. Ruth left her homeland. The disciples left their nets. Paul left his status. Peter left the boat. No one God used powerfully stayed where it was safe. Destiny is always found on the other side of departure. The boat feels safe until you realize Jesus isn't in it. The disciples were terrified inside the boat, but Peter was safest outside the boat because Jesus was there. Safety is not found in circumstances. Safety is found in proximity to Christ. The safest place on earth is the place God calls you to step, even if everything around you feels unstable. If Jesus is there, you are secure. Some people cling to the boat for dear life, not realizing the boat is the very thing trapping them in fear. Faith doesn't grow in safety. Faith grows in surrender. The call to step out will come again. And this is not a one-time invitation. Throughout your life, you will face moments where God whispers, "Step out, trust me, move forward, let go, leave the boat." Every new level requires a new step. Every new assignment requires a new act of obedience. Every new season requires a new surrender. God does not call you to water once. He calls you as many times as necessary until fear no longer dictates your decisions. Faith is not a single moment. Faith is a lifestyle of stepping out where He leads. Your destiny is on the water, not in the boat. You stay in the boat. You will live a safe life, but not a full one. You will live a predictable life, but not a purposeful one. You will live a comfortable life, but not a miraculous one. The fullness of what God has for you is never inside the boat. It is always in the place where your feet have never walked. And the moment you step out, you will feel heaven rise beneath your feet. Because water becomes solid where faith becomes active. The moment you step out, the impossible becomes possible when your foot touches the water. Fear loses its grip, heaven releases strength, and the impossible submits to obedience. Walking on water is not a human act, it is a divine partnership. You step, He sustains. You move, He carries. You risk, He reveals you. Trust, He transforms. Faith was never meant to be intellectual, it was meant to be experiential. You understand faith only when you walk in it. What you learn on the water, you can never learn in the bow. On the water, you discover. God's power is real. God's voice is trustworthy. God's presence is stronger than fear. God's hand is closer than the waves. God's call is bigger than your ability. God's purpose is worth every risk. The water teaches what the boat hides. The water reveals what fear blinds. The water transforms what comfort limits. You will never be the same once you've stood where only God can hold you. Your step of faith will change others. When Peter returned to the boat, the disciples didn't mock him, they worshipped Jesus. Your obedience will shift. Atmospheres. Your courage will awaken courage in others. Your faith will strengthen the faith of those watching. Your story of stepping out will become someone else's reason to rise. When one person dares to leave the boat, everyone else begins to believe that they can too. You are not just walking for yourself, you are walking for those who will follow your footsteps. Take the step. You can stay in the boat. You can cling to safety. You can choose comfort. You can choose fear. But at what cost? Everything God destined for you exists on the waters of obedience. Everything God planned for you on the other side of risk. Everything your heart longs for begins with a single step. Don't wait for perfect timing. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait until fear disappears. Take the step while fear shakes, while the wind blows, while the waves rise, while everything says stay in the boat. Because this is the truth. You can't walk on water without leaving the boat, and God is calling you out.